Hello, I'm probably riding my bike. A lot of people from my videos often think that Seoul is a super bike-friendly city. But then some people come and visit and try to ride a bike and don't feel quite as safe as they expected. So I'm going to answer your question today, whether Seoul is actually a bike-friendly city. On my ride to get some noodles and a coffee and meet a friend, I'll be rating some of Seoul's bike infrastructure.
So, I don't want to talk to you, but you might be probably riding, right?
Yeah, that's me.
I'm big-
For my rating system, I have 5 categories. The first one is safety, separation from cars and pedestrians, and general safety design. Number 2 is efficiency. How direct is it? How often do you need to stop? Are there many traffic lights? Does it save time, or is it just a way to get you away from cars and make them faster? The third category is scenery. What are the views like? What's the vibe like? Is it an enjoyable place to be and ride a bike? Number 4 is connectivity. Does it link well, or does it just randomly end and you're suddenly pushed onto the road with cars? Do you have access to subways or cafes and between neighbourhoods? And the final category is inclusivity. Is it wide enough? Is it beginner friendly? Can kids ride on it safely? Would a cargo bike fit? Would I ride this with my twins? Each of the 5 sections I'll rate out of 5. And then from the totals they'll get a probably riding rating of either glorious, lovely, a bit awkward, not ideal, and the worst, horrendous. So here's our first actual bit of infrastructure on this ride so far. It's the route from Namdaemun up to Gwanghwamun Square. It starts off quite promising with a separated bike lane from cars and pedestrians. If there were lanes like this all over Seoul, it'd be a cycling mecca, up there with Amsterdam and Copenhagen. I'm surprised there's not more people riding on it. There must be some reason. Later on it gets a bit more murky, a bit less separated. Still separated from cars, but not so much from pedestrians. It also gets a bit windy later on, and you're stopping a lot because of traffic turning right without separated lights for bikes. So for safety, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. A lot of people park right next to it, including busloads of tourists and taxi drivers. Efficiency, I'm going to give it another 3. It's not the most direct route. I think if you rode this road every day, you'd probably just end up riding on the car road because it's be much faster. Scenery, I'll give this one a 5. I think it's quite an interesting place to ride through with the big gate at the beginning at Namdaemun, and you're riding up to Gwanghwamun, so it's through the historical centre of Seoul. Connectivity, as you saw, there were no bike lanes until the beginning of the part in Namdaemun, but it is relatively well connected along all the way up to Gwanghwamun. There are some parts where you are mixed with pedestrians rather than being on a separate bike lane. And it does randomly end and disappear at points. So I'll give it a 3 for connectivity. And finally, inclusivity. Is it beginner friendly? Could kids ride on this, or elderly? Could I fit a cargo bike? would I want to ride with my cargo bike and my kids on this route? We saw a few more elderly people riding along this one, but we didn't see any kids, and I'm not sure I would recommend it for kids. There are too many parts where you're crossing where cars might be, and cars might not see you when they're turning right. And it's too mixed with pedestrians, so it's not awful, but I'll give it another 3 for inclusivity. So that first one gets a probably riding rating of lovely. As we leave Gwanghwamun, we quickly move on to one of the other cycling infrastructure that I'm going to rate. You see these often in Seoul, and Kakao Maps shows them as bike lanes. Can you tell that I'm riding on it now? You can see on the road there's the occasional painting of a bike, and it says Cheonggyecheon Usan-dodo, which means bicycle priority road. It's almost insulting. So for the Cheonggyecheon Usan-dodo, I'm going to give it a safety rating of 1, actually no, 0. There's no physical separation. You're relying on the car's behaviour. They're always on these big, wide, multi-laned roads. Cars tend to pass very close on these, so I'll be getting off it. For efficiency, I guess it's going to be pretty good because you're going the fastest route with the cars. But still, I'd only give it a 2. Scenery, it gets a 1 because I'm too scared of cars to focus on where I am. Connectivity, can I rate it? It's connected for cars. A 2. And inclusivity, I'll give it a 0. I would never have my kids riding on that road. So the Cheonggyecheon Usan-dodo gets a probably riding rating of horrendous. Absolutely pointless, fake infrastructure. So I need a bowl of noodles now to get myself over that. Juno wasn't waiting too long in the cold, and you could admire the updates on his crust evasion. It finally has 26 plus tyres and drop bars. We've come down to the basement to this Japanese ramen bar, Simi's, and I opted for the soy sauce broth, and Juno got the salt broth. Just a good standard delicious bowl of Japanese noodles, alongside a little bowl of rice topped with pork. A nice winter warmer, good comfort food. Most people don't have any nostalgia for them anyway. Yeah. Glorious. Now time to get a coffee and maybe do some more bike infrastructure rating. A small update on my rune. I've got a new fancy bag from Garner & Toe. It's a nice olive waxed canvas bag. Put an affiliate link in the description. I really like how well it's made in the USA from a small business. And it's got a nice size. And it's a nice bag for work as well. I feel like it's a good tote bag to carry and still look professional. A lot of riding in Seoul isn't on any infrastructure at all, but if you take the backstreets, you can get around much more easily and relatively safely. Also, this area with all its government buildings and offices is quite quiet on the weekend, so there's way less traffic than there might be during the week. This is perfect for a leisurely ride, riding side by side with your friend and talking about bike parts. Quite a bit of riding with no bike infrastructure there, but still enjoyable for me. I'm a confident rider and just enjoy riding my bike, as you know. So I'm happy to ride around most places in Seoul, but I think a lot of people wouldn't want to ride around on roads like these. We've reached our destination for coffee. This is Reception Coffee in Seocheon. I've made quite a few videos now and I drink so much coffee I forget which cafes I've featured in my videos. I'm not sure if I've showed you this one before. Every time they're super friendly. It's got lots of nice natural light and absolutely delicious coffee. Maybe I need to make a probably riding coffee rating system too.
I think the Romulus is prettier. It'll be hard. Any bike is hard to let go. That's why I have so many. They said just please don't sell it after you've created content. I thought these were big, but these feel...
Delicious cortado, which a lot of places seem to be doing now. And a nice scone, which we were gifted for free, which was a very nice surprise. And I got to show off my giant selfie stick for my 360 camera. A little bit embarrassing to use, but I think it'll be fun to use when I'm camping or something. A short but sweet meeting with Junho. I'm always grateful that he comes out. Which brings us to our next bit of cycle infrastructure. This is the bike lane around Gwanghwamun Palace. As you can see, it's a prime example of paint not being infrastructure, because the police are using it to park their bollards and cars and equipment. Not a good start to this bit of bike infrastructure. No protection from cars, but luckily it's a fairly quiet road so for safety I'll give this road, this bike lane, 2 out of 5. It might be higher on another day, but I'm just annoyed that it was just taken up by all the police vans. It's often the case here that bike lanes are just used to store or pile up other things, and then drivers wonder why we're not riding in the bike lanes. So for efficiency, I'm going to give it, I guess, a 3 out of 5. The bike lane does go the whole way around Gwanghwamun Palace, which is quite big. Scenery, it's a beautiful place. I love this old looking wall, which is probably not that old. And you get to go past the blue house. Give it a 5 for scenery. It's quite pleasant. Connectivity, it doesn't really connect to any other routes. So I'll give it a 2. And inclusivity, maybe a 3. But that's only because it's relatively quiet. I think if it was a busy route, it would feel quite unsafe for a lot of people. So this bike lane gets a probably riding rating of a bit awkward. It could be improved by having a separation between the roads and the cars, and not being used as storage by the police. Now, the best thing about riding a bike in Seoul is all the shortcuts you can take, whether there's proper bike infrastructure or not. if you ride slowly enough, you can take these shortcuts and just be cautious of other people. I really like this spot, this shrine behind the MMCA, the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. In the summer it's really nice to chill here and have a snack, maybe a picnic. So, if you've seen from a lot of my video, the majority of the riding isn't on any infrastructure at all. But as I said before, I try and take the quiet back streets and shortcuts. So I'm going to give the back streets a rating, even though they're not technically infrastructure. For safety, you're sharing with cars a lot of the time and pedestrians as well. But the back streets are generally pretty slow. So I'll give it a 3. You just got to be a careful rider and conscientious yourself. Efficiency for the back streets, probably about 2, because you're usually going a much longer route, which I don't often mind. Scenery on the back streets, I give it a 5. You can just turn a corner and find something cool all the time. Connectivity, it's kind of hard to judge that one because it's not bike infrastructure, so I'll give connectivity a 2 and inclusivity a 1. I think roaming the back streets of Seoul probably isn't that safe for kids. So the Seoul back streets get a probably riding rating of not ideal. Not ideal in terms of rating bike infrastructure, but still some of my favourite places to ride. Cycling here is in more of a thing you just do in your neighbourhood, or as a leisurely pursuit. One that you dress up for on the weekend and do with your friends, rather than something for daily life, roaming around the city. You do see some bike commuters along the Han River and the occasional one in the city, but it's not seen as a normal way to get around, partly due to the weather, because it's so hot in the summer and humid and so cold in the winter, and it is extremely hilly in parts too. But I think a big part of why a lot of people don't ride for daily life is because the infrastructure isn't there. I think if you build it, more people will use it. It needs to be safe and separated from cars and separated from pedestrians. It needs to be efficient. It should be the fastest way to get around, most direct, not just a way to get bikes off the road so cars can be faster. The scenery needs to be enjoyable. I think generally if you're in a place with fewer cars, the scenery is going to be nicer. It needs to be well connected, which is linked to the efficiency too. If you got connected bike lanes, people are going to travel further by bike. And it needs to be inclusive. You don't want just middle-aged white guys confident enough to ride around Seoul or any other city. It needs to be inclusive for men and women, elderly, younger, children. It should be for everyone. And that's a big part of why the folks are organising the critical mass rides in Seoul. They ride on every 3rd Saturday of the month. You should check out their Instagram for information of where to meet. Nowadays, I find it hard with childcare to find the time to join them, but I hope I'll be able to join a few more of the critical mass rides this year. I'm not Korean, but I've lived here a long time, and my children are Korean, so I feel invested. I'd love Seoul to be a better place to ride bikes, not just for me, but for everyone. Fewer giant cars, fewer multi-lane highways in the middle of the city, More bikes, more buses, more trains. I think it'll be a more pleasant place to live. In case you're wondering how I got the bike shots today, you can check the link in the bio. Now we're on to our next bit of bike infrastructure. This is the bike lane that goes along the Cheonggyecheon stream. There's a lane on each side. I feel like the city had good intentions with this one, but perhaps the execution could be done a bit better. You've got a raised, separated bike lane in the middle of the road on the left side, unusually, which works quite nicely a lot of the time. But it can be a problem when cars are turning left, because cars aren't used to having a bike lane in the middle of the road, and there's not many signs or lights to separate us. So I've had a few near misses on this bike lane. So I'm extra cautious on it. Also, today is cold and quiet, so there aren't many people, but there's usually tons of people walking on it too. You can see lots of signs telling pedestrians not to walk on it. The Cheonggyecheon bike lane gets a safety rating of 3. Efficiency, pretty good. I'll give it a 4. It's quite direct. Scenery, it's got a lot of places to stop. I'll give that a 4. Connectivity, it connects from where I was earlier in City Hall all the way down to the Han River. So connectivity, I'll give it a 5. Inclusivity, I still think there's not much space to overtake. Could make a slow child uncomfortable if people are trying to overtake them. So inclusivity, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. So it's kind of in between on the probably riding rating scale. So it's a lovely but a bit awkward. Now for another shortcut. I see motorbikes riding through these markets, so I presume it's okay for bikes to ride through carefully. This is a really cool dried fish market. Maybe not a tourist hotspot, but the kind of place that I love to visit. Now we have this section from Dongguk University up to Hannam, past Namsan. It's a painted bike lane, but it's more just a shared sidewalk or footpath with pedestrians. It's not a super busy area with pedestrians, so I'll give it a safety rating of 4. Efficiency, the surface isn't that nice, it's quite mixed. You have to stop a fair bit, maybe a 3. Scenery is a bit patchy. 3 again. Connectivity, it kind of ends abruptly. And then inclusivity, it's quite hilly and narrow in parts, so I'd give that quite low score of 2. That part gets a probably ready rating of a bit awkward. 30 minutes ago, I told my wife I'd be home in 20 minutes, so I better get a move on. But I just wanted to ride up and down this hill on the way home, so I took a little detour. Totally worth it for this descent. Now, I've saved the best till last. You're probably wondering why I hadn't shown you this yet. The main reason, but why a lot of people think Korea or Seoul is a cycling utopia. This is the Han River bike path, or the Hangang River bike path, as the Seoul government want us to call it in English. Completely separated bike lanes, usually away from cars and motorbikes, for miles and kilometres, stretching across the whole of the Han River and its tributaries too. You can basically ride this bike path all the way down to the south coast across the country to Busan. It's well signposted and maintained, and some parts even have 4 lanes of bike lane, like here. It's an incredible piece of bike infrastructure. I'm so grateful to have it. So I'll give it a safety rating of 5. The only cars you see are sometimes when there's construction maintaining it. Efficiency rating, another 5. Super direct. You never have to stop for lights. It's always flowing. It's usually the fastest way to go across Seoul, even if it's in distance-wise it's longer. Scenery, another 5. You just got endless parks all the way along. In the summer it's really beautiful and green. There are loads of picnic spots, workout zones, children's play parks, toilets. It's really well set up. So for that reason I'll give it an inclusivity rating of 5 as well. Or perhaps maybe a 4. I'll explain why in a moment. But it is safe for children and elderly people. There's plenty of space to overtake. But sometimes, on the weekends, it can get extremely busy, with huge groups of people acting like they're in the Tour de France, which might feel a bit unsafe for a kid. So for that reason, for inclusivity, I'll put it down to a 4. And connectivity, as I said, it connects basically all the way down to Busan, or if you're going east, all the way to Cheonggyecheon. And almost every tributary has its own bike lane connected to this too. So I'll give it a 5 for connectivity. Or perhaps maybe a 4. Just because it doesn't connect that well to the bike lanes within the city. I think that's one way that it could be improved. So the Han River bike lane gets a probably rating of glorious. So to answer the question, is Seoul a bike-friendly city? In parts, yes. It's better than a lot of places, but it still has a long way to go. I still love riding here though, and I'm still finding new cool places that I've never been to before. So how does Seoul compare to where you live? Is it better or worse? Are there some things that you could take from Seoul and put it in your country? Or are there things that you have that you think could improve Seoul? Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. See you later.